One.
Body problem.
Two.
Body problem. What's up, Netflix fans? Welcome back to the channel. I finally found time to finish 3 Body Problem. Apologies for the lateness, but, we got the baby and lots of movies this weekend. So let's talk about it.
Something insane, but true about all of us.
So a fateful decision made in 1960s China reverberates in the present, where a group of scientists partner with a detective to confront an existential planetary threat. This series is rated TV mature. You've got some nudity, violence, and gore, profanity, all the things that you expect in a mature series. And this comes to us from the creators of the Game of Thrones series. And for the most part, that's great. Until it's not. But it is, for the most part.
Today, Junior?
Here's the thing about Benioff and Weiss. They took Game of Thrones and they adapted it beautifully, but then when the source material ran out, well, you know the rest of the story. But with this, we are working off source material that I do not have any connection to, so I had absolutely no clue where this story was going. And to be honest with you, in the beginning, the first 2 to 3 episodes, I was trying to keep up with everything because they're throwing a lot of information at you. They're building up so many different characters and some time periods, and there's this cool, is that a video game? What is that? No, there's something more to this. Speaking of Game of Thrones, they bring over some actors from that show, Liam Cunningham, John Bradley, but you also have Isaac Gonzalez, Benedict Wong, Alex Sharp, a really good cast of characters, and like I said before, we are focused on so many different individual storylines, but they are slowly building to combine for something extremely fascinating, very interesting, and at the end of the first episode, not to spoil the show in its entirety, but when the universe starts winking, that's when things really take a turn. So what is 3 Body Problem? Is this an extraterrestrial sci-fi show? Is it supposed to be some kind of period piece where we're flashing to the future? What do the numbers mean that our characters are seeing? How do people know when to tell other people to look up in the sky at midnight because are they from the future? What is going on in this series? And I asked myself that multiple times through the first 3 episodes, but by the time you get to episode 4, I'm thinking, all right, now they're starting to explain things. I don't want them to overly explain it because I do like the mystery of it all. But episode 5, they're like, no, we're just going to give you this, but then we're going to turn the show into something I believe even more interesting in episode 5, to where it starts to build up to what I perceive to be a different conclusion. And while we don't get a sense of finality at the end, they do cap off some storylines that I found to be really, really interesting. It's just the originality of this story. I thought of Lost and Westworld, to where there is this lingering mystery happening in the background. Now, the way this show approaches it is much different, but I love when a television series combines sci-fi with drama, with a thriller aspect, and then so many different characters. Too many, in my opinion, in the beginning to keep up with, because again, there was a bit of confusion at the beginning, and I had to take care of my daughter, so maybe that was, a lot going on.
Then everyone loses their minds.
And oftentimes shows like this, it can be a swing and a miss, but this one at least takes major swings. You have characters that you find integral to the plot, and it's like, we don't need them anymore. And so they make big decisions as you're going. I'm like, I can't believe they just did that. And then you're shifting time periods, and then you're shifting your focus from one group of people to the next, and you're trying to figure out how it all connects. If this is some sort of alien invasion coming, that's what I was thinking by the end of the first episode. Okay, what does this mean? What is the universe trying to say to our characters? But then it starts to connect the dots, and the puzzle pieces begin to come together to where you're slowly figuring out what's happening, A, and then B, it makes these characters all that more important. And plus, you have some really good performances as well. And so it begins within the scientific community, and there is a series of deaths that kind of lead our characters to find each other. And then one of our characters, in Augie, she begins to see a literal countdown. I mean, she sees it, and she's the only one that sees it. Everybody else is like, oh, that's weird. And I'm like, no, she sees it. And so she meets a mystery figure, and she's having these full conversations. But when you look at security footage and cameras, no one else can see her. So there is one mystery combined with another mystery. And by the end of episode 1, you have 3 to 4. And then beyond that, just the reasons as to why we're seeing all this. And so you are left salivating for episode 2. And that's what a show like this needs to do. And so then we're cutting back to China, where a young scientist makes a decision, and we kind of see that play out. We don't just spend one scene on it. We keep cutting back to it, which did at times kind of hurt the pacing of the show because we're flashing back and forth and cutting between all of these people. And that's a hard thing to balance when you have to build up things like this. But admittedly, within the first 3 episodes, there are some pacing issues that started to become a little overwhelming. Thankfully, I was intrigued by all of it, but it did start to compromise my enjoyment of the show. But the thing is, I liked all of the storylines. I liked seeing Benedict Wong trying to figure things out while Jonathan Pryce and Liam Cunningham were playing these mysterious figures, and you don't know what their goals, their motives are. And then you just have the ideas at play, the ideas that aren't often explored in shows like this. What would you do if you knew, or at least you thought, and we're trying to come to conclusions in the first 2 episodes, something else was out there. Something was there beyond our reach, and we've seen alien show after alien show, invasion after invasion, but what would this do to the idea of religion? What would this do to the idea of science? How would it change our approach on these things? And we see that play out. We are asked these questions with this show. And while it occasionally is hitting you over the head with revealing the mysteries to you instead of just allowing you to approach it and try to figure it out yourself, which I feel as if they could have done that in a different way, it still raised a lot of important questions that you can apply to our reality right now with all the crazy alien stuff going on. I could talk about that for days. But it's a show with intriguing possibilities, interesting probabilities, and questions that do start to get answered once you hit the halfway point. And the biggest question, what would we do if we knew that something was going to happen way down the road? How would that affect our decision making and our thought process today? And so the ideas that we are being presented with, man, I found them to be really cool in 3 Body Problem, and I think Benioff and Weiss do a nice job of trying to dissect those ideas and going from plot point to plot point. But again, by the time you get to the end, I did like the finality of certain plot points, but they definitely set this up for more to happen. And with Netflix, you just never know.
I guess we'll never know.
If we get another season. If we don't, I'm going to be pissed. I'm going to say, why did I sit through all of that just to get built up for nothing? But if we do, I think there's room for improvement, both with the pacing and now that we have all of these ideas in place, how do we start to answer these really important questions? There's some CGI in the latter half of this series that I thought was good, but I do feel as if visually they could improve upon that. There are also some scenes that were really bloody and gory. I didn't expect that, especially at the beginning, because it's just a lot of conversations in the beginning, and then you get to the end, you're like, wow, that was way more mature than I expected. But I like a good, meaty, mature show like this. I like a show that prevents really important questions, but questions that adults can sit down and try to figure out, that has those mature themes. But it also has themes, things that we're dealing with and we can apply to our lives right now. And I get it, the source material, again, I'm not familiar with the original book, but I know for a fact it had to be interesting enough to adapt, and I think they did a nice job. Well, who knows? Maybe they changed the entire thing. I wouldn't know. I didn't read it. So I think that's the biggest question I have for you all that are familiar with the source material. Did this do a nice job? And those who aren't, are you intrigued? Are you engaged? What would you like to see in a season 2? And if you enjoyed this video and you want to support this channel, subscribe, man. We're doing these Netflix reviews every single weekend, and like, comment, share on your MySpace? I don't know. 3 Body Problem asks a series of interesting questions and presents a string of intriguing sci-fi ideas in the process. There is a lot that this story has to balance, and the pacing occasionally suffers, but it results in an engaging and mysterious series that will keep viewers invested from start to finish. Hopefully not finish like it's done, but the finish of season 1. So I am interested. I'm in. Let's see what happens. And this cast is really good, as well as the filmmaking. I really enjoyed the look of this show for the most part. So thanks so much for watching. What are you watching on Netflix this weekend? And check out some other reviews right here on this channel.